And I just wanted to say, are we, because I missed the first few minutes, did we talk about asking the participants where they are from? Because that we didn't gather that information in the Zoom sign up. And so we were talking about, how would we know that we'd captured the Pacific region kind of people rather than, from somewhere else? So did we talk about that?
Well, I just heard there are people coming from India. There's someone from Sweden who wrote me this morning who's interested in the Pacific. But is the volume issue resolved? Should I turn my volume off? Yeah, sorry. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay. Can you turn that up even further? So what I intend to do is I want to, sort of keep that informal IDS spirit, at the center of the introduction as well. And so I will ask them to use the chat to essentially tell us a little bit more about themselves, where they're from, or what their, our interests are in joining the session. And then I think we can actually use that. I don't think we will have enough time to have, a question and answer session at the end. But I think what we can do is use the breakout rooms to sort of track the questions during the main session and then answer any questions in those sessions. I think that's the best that we can do with the time that we have. Yeah.
Yeah, and when I was talking to Linda yesterday, who does quite a lot of talking to prospective students, Linda suggested that when you ask where somebody is from, you also ask what can you see out of your window as a kind of sort of icebreaker as well, to encourage people to put something a bit different in the chat, which has worked quite well for her in the past. Sorry, Linda, I'm just talking for you, but I thought just in case you didn't remember, I would put that in as well.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, I mean, we may have 200, but let's see how many people actually do log on. We'll probably have a small snowstorm of responses, but it's good. I mean, I see that as being a way to make it more interactive. And I also wanted to encourage people to use the reaction buttons, the thumbs up and the claps to virtually welcome people and so on as well. So hopefully it'll be a bit, fun and relaxed.
So we've got just under 5 minutes. Are there any questions you want to ask me in the next few minutes? I think it's all running smoothly at the moment. You can all share your screen. Carol was co-hosting the event with me. So if my internet goes down, then it will still continue. So we've got a backup person to run the event. So Carol was co-host.
And Carol, are we using the computer audio or the audio, the room's audio?
The microphone is connected to the room. I'm trying to establish the room speaker.
Okay.
Oh no, IT guys are down with COVID.
Oh dear. All of the IT guys are down with COVID.
Oh dear, I hope they get better and don't get too sick.
You want us to get the IT
It's not the best time actually here at the end.
Yeah.
Here in the middle of the Thursday. Speaker really loud, and as long as we can see.
What's working in CA.
Well, look, I mean, can I? We've got, so the other thing I just wanted to add is that I just think we should start right away because we don't have a lot of time. And so,
Okay.
we just, I mean, on time. I mean,
on time.
Yeah, I won't wait for people to join us. We'll just sort of launch into it.
Okay.
I'm trying to reestablish the speaker in the room.
She's just trying to reestablish the speaker.
This is an endless meeting. This secretary was working. I think I muddled it up when we were trying to.
James, how many years have we been number one?
5.
5, 6?
5.
5.
Okay, shall I let people in now, Esther?
Just I'll ask.
Yeah, that's just that.
Esther, did you want to open the meeting with the slides, or would you prefer to open them with your own video?
I sort of leave that to you. I mean, I'm happy to sort of begin with, you know, with the slides. I'm actually trying to find, yeah, and then we can switch to the video. I don't think it's that important to have this slide up when I speak. I mean, we can just sort of do that at the end.
Could I just say, if I'm going first, I've also got some slides, and the first one sort of says introducing IDS with the logo and so on, and then I'll be moving on through those. So I'll be switching to that quite quickly.
Okay.
Presuming I start straight away, but maybe we should have this one up while people are coming in.
Esther's prepared some introductions, so she may want to. I think the first slide is actually introducing yourself, Melissa. So it may be that she wants to. She's got herself, and then you, Melissa. So she may want to do that first. It might make more sense. Esther, is that okay with you? Or did you?
Sorry, we finally got the sound back. Yeah, that's fine with me.
That's okay. Yeah, okay, great. And then we'll go straight to you, Melissa.
Okay, sure.
I let people in now, Esther.
Yep, great, thank you.
Okay, good luck, everyone.
Okay, I think we will get started. Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to extend a very warm welcome to all of you who are joining us from across the Pacific, and also to extend an especially warm welcome to our colleagues in the UK who are joining us from IDS, and it's morning their time, especially because it's a little colder where they are at the moment. My name is Esther McIntosh. I'm going to be the host of this event today. And it's really a pleasure for me to be able to welcome you to this event entitled Achieving Sustainable Development in the Pacific Through Learning and Global Research Collaboration. The timing of this event cannot be understated. As many of you who are joining us today are fully aware, we are at the crossroads of a number of breakdowns and challenges globally. That includes the pandemic, in which many of us are in the middle of bearing the brunt of as small island states. We are coming out of COP26, which I know many of you would have been tuned into, those very important discussions, and where many leaders from the Pacific have been representing the issues that are very specific to the region and that they are confronted by. And we are about to begin the observation of 20 days of activism against GBV here in Papua New Guinea, where I'm speaking from. That has already started because here it's observed as 20 days of activism. But I think these range of events also very much touch on some of the complexities and the range of issues that are confronting the Pacific today. And I think that the audience and everyone who is joining us feels that they have a role to play in addressing some of those challenges. And I hope that that there is a sense of optimism in engaging in a community and joining this virtual circle that we've created to discuss some of the issues that are affecting us and how we can play a role in addressing them and bringing about change and better outcomes. So today I wanted to begin by providing you with a bit of an outline of the event. The first hour of the event will be structured as primarily an introduction, starting off with an introduction to IDS, an introduction to our teaching and learning facilities at the Institute. And then we'll also touch on the short courses and professional courses that we offer. And we're hoping through this event to essentially make a link between the challenges that are confronting us in the Pacific and some of the research and learning opportunities that IDS is engaged in that are directly sort of working towards addressing those issues. And in that way, I think that we will hopefully have a very sort of a rich discussion around, those areas of collaboration and those areas of synergy. In the second hour, we will have an opportunity. I know that many of you joining us here today, and there is a range of people who've reached out. I know the audience is quite varied, so there are people who are interested in the academic opportunities at IDS. There are others who are interested in research and are interested in areas of collaboration with the research that's occurring at IDS, and then others that are just generally curious about the Institute and what do we do there. So we hope that this event is quite brief and succinct, but it will give you an opportunity to understand the full breadth of what happens at IDS and what IDS is able to offer and areas in which we could potentially collaborate. And so because it is a very short time and because we don't have an opportunity to reach out to you all individually, we're hoping that you will use the chat facility within Zoom to share a little bit about yourself. We're very keen to hear a little bit about where you're from. I've been told that a way for us to get to learn a little bit about you is what do you see outside of your window. So maybe you can have a look and tell us what you see. But tell us also a little bit about what your expectations are. And even though there's not an opportunity for a lot of discussion in the first session, there is a lot of opportunity for dialogue in the second half when we have the breakout sessions. So that will be, we will track some of the questions that you're asking here and then make sure that we're addressing those in the breakout session. So if you have the time, please stick around for the second section as well. So those three groups will be focused on teaching. There will be a second on professional learning, and then there'll be another on partnerships. And I'll talk a little bit more about those when we come to it. But to start off with, we just very much look forward to learning a little bit more about the audience. For those of you who know have never been to IDS, I think that it's important to say that IDS has a very unique culture. Even though I was a student there myself 20 years ago, I think many of us who walk into the doors of IDS immediately see the way of working there, and that's very much about working collaboratively. There's very little barrier between students, professors, and researchers. It's a very open, warm, and welcoming space, lots of friendly faces and lots of open doors. And so we wanted to try today to recreate some of those, some of the spirit of IDS at this event. And so we hope that you will feel very welcome and also feel very comfortable to participate in the sessions, especially in the breakout sessions, where you'll have a chance to interact with members of the panel and that you see before you. So we'll begin with the first speaker and the first item on the agenda, which is really to provide you with a brief introduction to IDS. And it is really a great pleasure for me to introduce and warmly welcome Melissa Leach, who is our director. Melissa has been a director at IDS for about 7 years. And in 5 of those years, IDS has been ranked first in the world for development studies in the QS ranking. And we've also been ranked as the best international development policy think tank. And that's a major achievement, and I think speaks volumes about the very dynamic executive director that we have. I think apart from that, what's also, of course, very interesting in Melissa's bio is that, like many of us on the call, she's also a very well-experienced and well-celebrated researcher, and someone who has a very deep passion for a lot of the issues that we'll be discussing today. And I think that really helps to connect IDS with the broader community, and it's very much a part of how we work as an institution and the spirit in which we collaborate and engage with partners. So Melissa is here today to introduce you to IDS, and I think there's no better person because she has had such a profound role in shaping IDS in recent years, also because of her background and her understanding of the issues. And I'm hoping that she will be able to provide us with a little bit of a background in terms of some of our strategic direction and give you a taste of some of the commitments that we've made, some of the issues around sustainable development, which she has been involved in for her entire career. So I want to lastly say that I hope that we will use the reaction button quite actively in this session. And if you could join me in putting together your virtual yellow hands and welcoming Melissa very warmly to this event. Thank you very much for joining us, Melissa, and over to you.
Oh, well, Esther, thank you very much for such a lovely introduction, both to IDS and to my role, and a very warm welcome to everybody. Good evening to you all. It's a delight to be here with you. So a very quick whistle-stop introduction to IDS. Wait a minute. Oh, my slides are now not moving on, which is annoying. Wait a second. Sorry. Hang on a minute. Now we've got the technical problems. My slides are not moving on. Here we go. Yeah. So this is the building. It sits on the University of Sussex campus. This was a bright summer's day. It's actually a bright day today. We've been around for more than 50 years. And although we're on the university campus, we're actually an independent institution, very much focused on global issues. We describe ourselves as a global charity with a focus on research, impact, teaching and learning. And we're very mission focused. And our mission is to work towards a more equitable and sustainable world where everybody everywhere can live lives free from poverty and injustice. Working in the building, we have around 230, 240 staff. About 100 of those are our fellows and our research officers. We also have many professionals working in communications and in mobilizing knowledge, as well as our project support staff, our finance, our HR people. But the IDS community also includes at any time around 300 postgraduate students and the many people who are part of the IDS community, but across the world, our partners and our many alumni. So just some quick numbers. It's already been said that we enjoy this QS #1 ranking, which we actually held for 6 out of the last 7 years, which is something I think the whole community is very proud of. These are just some figures from the last year around our publications, our numbers of partners, our high proportion of those who are in the Global South, and our emphasis on collaboration shown in things like the very high proportion of our publications that are co-authored with external partners from many countries across the world. We're very much a values-based institution, something Esther emphasised. I hope one feels that as one walks through the door, and I hope many of you may get the chance to do that in the future. But we talk about our values as being around respect, around inclusivity, very much respectful and involving diverse voices, alternative perspectives across the world, something that these days is often linked up with the debates about decolonizing development and research and curricula, as well as really focusing on excellence and being resourceful in the ways that we work. We run in terms of 5-year strategies, and our current strategy, which we launched just after the start of the COVID pandemic, was really quite apt because we called it Transforming Knowledge, Transforming Lives. But what the strategy is really about is responding to the disruptions and shocks of our era. And that's very much what we're doing across our research, our teaching and learning, our communications and impact. And just to share a little bit about what we're doing, the strategy has within it 4 overarching commitments, which run across all those areas of work. And the first is around upholding climate and environmental justice, something many of our researchers were talking about at COP26 over the last couple of weeks. And these are just some of the examples of research themes and topics that we're involved in. Around transformations to sustainability, around working in a more uncertain world, around adaptation, of course, something extraordinarily important in the Pacific region, and a lot of work on water and climate. Our second big overarching commitment is around inequities and inequality, which we very much understand as intersecting. So yes, gender, but also interactions with racial and ethnic inequalities, religious inequalities, those to do with economy, child labor, for instance. And these are just some of the programs that we're involved in here, working in very different parts of the world. Our third overarching commitment focuses in on health, but not seen in a narrow way. We're interested too in well-being more broadly and in the systems that underpin good health and well-being. Something again incredibly important in the Pacific, where especially many of the small island states are really struggling in terms of their systems and services. And we're thinking about systems that can really serve, including the poorest and most marginalized people, and a lot of work, for instance, in urban settings, as well as around epidemics and pandemics. And I think IDS already had something of a niche in helping to shape policies with a social lens, understanding the cultural dimensions of epidemic preparedness and response. And that's something we've continued in a lot of work linked to the COVID pandemic over the last 2 years. And our fourth big overarching commitment focuses on democracy, really, and inclusive societies, and how we can look to build political systems that are accountable, that take note of citizen voice. And one of the big themes that we're focusing on is actually young people and the political voices and activism of youth, something that we've been working on a great deal in African settings, but I think is also extremely important to the Pacific region as well. And IDS has a long tradition of work on participation and participatory action research for inclusion. And this is something that cuts across all our work, but particularly comes out around these ideas about inclusive democratic societies, research methods that really work with people and lead to genuine change. So to deliver on those overarching commitments, we've got a number of strategic priorities. The first really about research and collaboration, the second around building future leadership, the third around mobilizing evidence for justice, our fourth around partnerships and internationalism, and our final one kind of about walking our talk in terms of the sustainability and equity with which we work with each other amongst staff and partners. And we do work with many partnerships and consortia. I think 377 was the last count of our formal partners. Almost all of our research programs involve multi-partner consortia across the world. Under this strategy, we're developing some focused international initiatives in places that are at the forefront of geopolitical change in China, Pakistan, Ghana, Brazil, and Europe. But we also work and very much wish to strengthen work with partners in other regions. And the Pacific is somewhere where we have worked a little bit, but would really love to strengthen some research and learning work together. And that's really all I wanted to say by way of introduction, but I do hope that this meeting can actually be the start of a strengthened and more intense set of collaborations across these different areas of our work. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Melissa. And I think that, as I mentioned to everyone before, I know there'll be many questions that you may have or ideas that you have of how you can collaborate with IDS. We would very much welcome a hearing from you. And so I think we would appreciate if you could leave any comments that you have in the chat, and we can have a further discussion when we break out into the groups at the end of the session. So thank you very much, Melissa, for taking us through very briefly but very thoroughly the full breadth of what IDS is working on in the sort of research and learning space, and some of our background, which I think is very rich and which informs the the commitment that IDS has to a number of issues that it's been working on, in some cases for decades. In the interest of time, we're going to move on to the sort of second speaker and the second item on the agenda, which is to build on Melissa's introduction and speak a little bit about learning at the Institute. I know many people who have reached out have an interest in pursuing their own development, whether it's through an academic course or an academic program, or whether through a short course. So I'm also equally delighted to introduce you to someone who I know and work with very closely at IDS as well, and that is Linda Waldman, who is our Director of Teaching and Learning. As Melissa presented earlier, the focus of IDS and the focus of the degree programs is as much about a commitment to research and learning and action as it is to strengthening the technical expertise that is in developing and other country partners through the learning programs that we offer. But as Melissa mentioned, one of the core objectives that we have is on developing future leadership. It's actually one of the cornerstones of our strategy. And in recent years, we've seen a significant increase in the number of persons participating in the degree programs. So we now have, I think, a very rich community globally of people who are former IDS alum. And later on, you're going to be hearing a little bit more from each of them. But today we wanted to tell you a little bit more about why we've become such a globally recognized teaching program that's made up, as has been mentioned already, of a very rich and diverse number of people from all over the world. That's certainly something that I remember from my time at IDS, and I remain connected with many of my peers and colleagues from my time there, because it immediately gives you such a rich network of people from across the globe. I think about 60% of our alum are actually from developing countries. So here to tell us a little bit more about what we offer is Linda Waldman, and I'm very pleased to introduce Linda and to welcome her to this event. And if you can join me in putting your hands together and warmly welcoming Linda. Linda, over to you to tell us a little bit more.
Thank you very much, Esther, and thank you for that lovely warm welcome. I'm going to share my screen with you. So if you just bear with me for 1 second. There we go. You should be able to see my screen now. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. And I'm delighted to be here today and to share this time with you. So I'm Linda Waldman, and I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning at IDS. And for those of you who've been to Brighton, you may recognize IDS is based in Brighton, and this is the seascape at Brighton. So this is the area where we all grow up and spend our time when we're not at IDS and not studying or working. So Melissa's already mentioned our IDS vision and strategy, and I'm not going to talk very much about it. Those are our 4 commitments: climate and environmental justice, extreme inequities, fostering healthy and fulfilling lives, and nurturing inclusive, democratic, and accountable societies. But what makes me really proud of IDS's strategy, and what makes me really deeply committed to it, is the fact that we also have a number of priorities. And one of the priorities we have is to build future leadership for development. And the reason I really care about this is because we believe that our work in IDS is not just for the present, but also for the future. And we want to use our knowledge, action, and leadership to really change the world. And that's very important to us. So I'm particularly proud to be the head of a teaching program that is committed to educating students for the future and helping them to make their own mark on the world. Our teaching at IDS, as Melissa has already mentioned, is very much a postgraduate portfolio. We teach masters and PhD students, and working with the University of Sussex. The University of Sussex ratifies our degrees. So if you come to IDS and do a degree, you will receive a degree transcript from the University of Sussex with IDS also mentioned on it. And together with the University of IDS, together with the University of Sussex, we are the biggest and the best in development studies in the world, and that is our QS ranking. And we also have and host the British Library for Development Studies, which has a very rare collection of literature and books and articles which our students can access and use. So we do a whole range of postgraduate degrees. We have 9 specialized and generalized masters, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about them because each one is a little bit different. So our degrees focus firstly on choice, and we have in particular here the MA in Development Studies. This is our biggest master's degree, and we have the most students doing it. And I think it's also our youngest degree in the sense that we have the youngest students doing it. And it's a degree that's made up for people who want to experience IDS and want to learn about development, but who aren't yet absolutely clear what direction they want to go in. So these students have a huge ability to choose where they want to go and to shape their direction during the course of the year. They have the most choice at IDS in terms of which modules, which topics, what they would like to do and how they would like to move forward. So it's a very generalized degree. Then we have a whole number of degrees that are very focused on very specific themes. So we have the MA in Gender and Development, or we have the MA in Governance, Development and Public Policy. We have an MA in Poverty and Inequality, or Poverty and Development. And we have MAs in Globalization, in Food and Development. So these are very specialized topics. We also have an MA in Practice and Action Research, and this is very much in the history of IDS and participatory research and understanding not just the world out there, but also how we engage with the world, how we can collectively bring about and shape action and change, and how we can be reflective of our own actions and our own behaviors and how they shape development and communities and interactions as well. And then finally, we have a number of degrees for PhD studies. So we have 2 possibilities here. You can either do a conventional PhD in which you do your own research and you stay with us for a number of years and you write up your OPM, your dissertation or your thesis, and that's your really big impact that you do, or you can come to IDS with a number of publications that you've already completed, and you can look at doing a PhD by publication, which allows you to draw on work you've already done before and to look across that work and synthesize it and theorize it and build a body of work around it. 2 of our degrees, the MSc in Climate Change Policy and Development and the MA in Food and Development, are shared degrees with the University of Sussex. So that means you get taught by both IDS faculty and the University of Sussex faculty, and you move between those spaces. For all of our students, you're all fully registered as University of Sussex students, so you have access to IDS and to the University of Sussex. So that's a little bit about our degrees, and we can talk more about them later on. Our entry requirements for our master's degrees are usually to have a first or an upper second class degree, to have 1 or 2 years development work. And this is really important to us. We want our students to come to development with knowledge and experiences that they can talk about, think about, theorize, engage with, share with other students. So we try not to have students who haven't had any work experience whatsoever, because we firmly believe that it's important for us to learn from our students and our students to learn from each other. And we believe that sharing collective experience is a really important part of learning. And of course, we ask all our students to do a statement as to why they wish to come to IDS. And unlike many institutions, we take these statements incredibly seriously. And we do sometimes reject very good students if their statements suggest that they are only interested in development for personal or instrumentalist reasons. We're interested in students' willingness to meet our own vision and our own strategy, which is about bringing about positive change and making a difference in the world of development. So at IDS, we're very proud of the fact that we don't have exams and we don't have those kind of very rigid testing methodologies, but we do expect a lot of writing. So students are expected to write term papers, usually between 2,000 and 5,000 words. We do an awful lot of group work, group presentations, and all of our degrees end with dissertations, usually again about 10,000 words, some 15,000 words. And then we have a whole range of other activities that might happen at IDS. So you might have a takeaway paper or an action research assignment or practical exercises or group consultancy or doing something completely different, such as unruly politics, where you might have to disrupt the building for a day or something like that. So we try to encourage our students and try to have assignments that are not focused just on academic writing, but go beyond that as well. We have a lot of support in place at IDS. So every degree has conveners that look after you and work with you and spend the whole year with you. And every student for your dissertation or your thesis would have a supervisor. We have lectures, classes, seminars. We have a lot of workshops, and then we do a range of additional activities. So we're very proud of our participatory workshops. And here you have a photograph of Robert Chambers doing one outside. We go outside whenever it's possible and whenever it's appropriate to our activities. And over the past year, we've been doing our participatory workshops online, which has been a new experience for many of us, but we've been delighted to find technologies that work and make this possible and to still convey the key elements of these participatory workshops. We have an event which I'm really pleased and proud to be part of every year, which is what we call the Professional Skills Week. It's a 1-week slot in January when everyone at IDS comes together and we talk about IDS learning from IDS. So anyone at IDS can offer to do a session on any skill that they think is useful for development. So we've had students talking about taking photographs, or some students talking about their work in monitoring and evaluation, or using a particular technology, or really anything that you think would be useful for other people to know. So staff and students all come together. We produce a huge agenda of everything that's going to be taught in this week, and people move between slots and go to whichever interests them. So I'm really proud of the spirit of Professional Skills Week. And then we have other activities such as the research design module, which helps those students who, every student has to do it, but it helps us to think about our dissertations and our thesis and what it is that we want to convey and how and what kinds of work we need to do, or what kinds of questions we need to ask to get the best out of our research. And Methods Week, again, is thinking about the methods that we want to use for our dissertations. And then every degree has what we call core sessions, which are every week the students from a degree meet together and they talk about the skills you need for academia and to do well in your degree. But you can also talk about other skills. So it might be around using software, like referencing software, or how to write academically, or the students might choose to run a session on something that they are interested in. So for example, the food and development degree might choose to run a session where they invite people from Brighton who are running allotment clubs in Brighton to come and talk to them. And you can set these up and do these as you wish. IDS has recently put in place the most beautiful study room, which I'm very envious of, for our students to use. And I've already mentioned the British Library for Development Studies. So this year, we have 269 IDS master students, that's including IDS and the University of Sussex. 213 of those are just IDS students, and the rest are these linked degrees with the University of Sussex. And we have about 61 PhD researchers as well. These students come from 56 different nationalities. And as Esther mentioned, this, I think, is one of the really valuable elements of IDS. And when our students go away and talk about what they learned, one of the things they inevitably talk about is interacting with all of these different students, learning to know people from all over the world and maintaining those relationships. So I think this is one of the fantastic benefits of coming to IDS. It's not something we do. It comes automatically from our student body, but it's something we love and we nurture and we think of as essential to the IDS culture. What we do is encourage everyone to learn to listen, to be patient with different expressions, different idioms, to hear how people are talking, and to learn to interact in a multidisciplinary, in a multi-ethnic, multinational world. And we think that's very important for our students and for us. So these are some of the famous alumni that we have. Carlos Quesada was here last week talking to our students. It was very exciting. A couple of years ago, we had Isatu Torre talking to our students again and welcoming her to IDS and reflecting back on her journeys. And it's great that IDS has some really famous alumni who we know have done very active things in terms of changing the world. But I'm always much more interested in some of our other alumni. Oh gosh, this is just a quote from Isatu saying how proud she is to have been at IDS and to have studied with IDS. And Melissa, who's here today, was her PhD supervisor. And we know it's just such a great pleasure when she comes back and visits us, and she just brings enthusiasm and excitement into the building, just like so many of our other students. But what I'm really interested in is all these other people who come to IDS, the people who aren't famous, but who go on to other jobs in development, working as research assistants, working in foundations, working in NGOs, running their own small organizations, who every single day in small ways do something to make this world a better place. And these people often aren't loudly announced as leading alumni, but they're so important to us and they're so important to our vision and our strategy. So I always think that these people are kind of more interesting in some ways than our very famous alumni. And I'm always delighted that most of our students go on to take up these kinds of roles and to do small things, which in their everyday ways help us to change the world. Why do I keep doing this? So these are some quotes from last year's students. And last year for us was an exceptional year. And in some ways, a bit of a disappointing year, because in the whole of the year, our students didn't get to come into IDS for lectures, which was sad for us. They came into IDS to use the study space, but they weren't able to have classes because of COVID. And so it was so important to me, looking back last week at our students' comments from the year, to see how we had managed to convey a sense of IDS spirit, of the values of IDS to our students, even though they weren't able to come into the building. We're looking forward to having a graduation with them in person later on, well, at the beginning of next year, and to meeting all of them and seeing them collectively together. But I wanted to pick out some of these quotes. So one student writing about from the MA Poverty and Development, how she loved that you could base your research on any part of the world where you're from to explore more. We're very unrestrictive in terms of topics and things you can write about. So students can choose whatever they like. And another one from MA Participation, constantly impressed by the staff, the content, the depth of knowledge, and the warmth of the IDS community. And here is just some more, very similar. But again, I really like this one from, again, MA Power, Participation and Social Change. I have unlearned my rigid ideologies, relearned best practices to amplify my skills and knowledge in the development space. And then MA Gender, IDS has some of the kindest faculty I've ever met. You're always sure to get a kind word, and the staff are genuinely interested. Really lovely to read those comments, because we work so hard to make IDS a community. And finally, from MA Food and Development, I've been stretched in new directions, taught by some of the thought leaders in development. It's been a privilege and a rewarding experience. So I love these quotes. Obviously, we also get critical comments, and we work very hard to address the criticisms and to make IDS an even better place for the following year. But it's great to also get this very positive feedback. So I hope that one day you will walk through our doors as well, and in transforming your world, you will transform all of our worlds and make this a better place. Thank you so much, Esther.
Thank you so much. Am I on? Well, thank you so much, Linda. That was fantastic and very inspiring. Thank you very, very much for that fantastic overview of the academic courses and opportunities for learning at IDS. We're going to stay on that theme and move along. If you have any questions for Linda, please keep in mind that there's a breakout session after where you can ask her questions directly, but you can also ask questions in the chat. But I wanted to move us along to the next item on our agenda and the next presenter. And we are going to be focused on another area on offer at IDS, and those are our professional short courses. So in the pre-COVID world, I routinely visited IDS for board meetings and for other events. And when I was there, I always head immediately to the bookstore. And this is one of the great IDS publications that I picked up. I don't know if you could see it. It's our IDS bulletin. And it was on policy partnerships in international development. I actually keep it on my desk because it's such a useful reference document. So in there, I think, is the precursor to a short professional course that was launched, I think, the year after, which is Shaping Policy with Evidence. And it's actually become one of our most popular courses. And it is the brainchild of James George Galakis, who is the Director of Communications and Impact at IDS. And I'm really delighted to have James here today, not least to say congratulations on the great work that you're doing in the space of policy, because I know that's an area of interest for many of us here, but also to have an opportunity to hear directly from you on what are the short courses and professional courses that are on offer for professionals who are joining us and are not interested in degree programs, but are interested in learning new skills, especially in the COVID pandemic. Many of us are thinking about new areas of expertise or new areas that we'd like to venture into. And so I think this is a great opportunity for us to get a little snippet of what's on offer at IDS. So James, another very warm welcome to you, and over to you to tell us a little bit more.
Hi, thanks so much for such a nice introduction. It's always nice to hear one of our bulletins is on someone's desk, ready at hand. That's great feedback. So I'm just going to share my screen. So I hope everyone can see that. Good, great. So as Esther's explained, I'm going to talk a bit about the kind of learning opportunities we offer really busy working professionals, which is something close to my heart. As a member of IDS's professional staff, there's a real demand for learning opportunities for those who perhaps aren't at the stage to be embarking on a more academic course, or perhaps they've already done that sort of thing. And IDS, this goes right back to the very beginnings of IDS, because actually IDS started out in 1966 as Britain's first international training institute. So a bit of ancient history there for you. But this takes us right back to the beginnings of the institute. We've always had a role, but more recently we've really focused on this area, and we've really tried to bring to it a level of rigor and professionalism and high quality suitable for the current international development sector. And our professional development facilitators, they work very hard in designing and facilitating very, very interactive and supportive learning environments. So this picks up directly on what Linda was talking about. IDS has a reputation for very interactive, participatory forms of learning, and we bring those principles into our professional short course program. We run a number of different types of short course or professional learning. So there are open application courses. So what I mean by that is individuals, can go on the website, they can sign up and they can apply to come on a course, or perhaps they'll be sponsored by their employer to do so. And we, of course, mainly ran those face-to-face, but COVID has created an environment in which we've had to switch to a lot of online learning. There are two kinds of online learning. There's the kind of online course where you sign up and you receive the content digitally and you do it in your own time. But we are particularly excited about our live online courses, which we've really developed during the pandemic. This is where we try to replicate to some degree that participatory, interactive, mutual learning environment, but using digital technology. We also do provide bespoke learning activities for development professionals, where partners might approach us and say, we'd really like to have a course run by IDS, but tailored to the needs of our particular project, program, or institution. And again, pre-COVID, we often did those in the location of that partner, but increasingly, for the time being at least, we've been doing those also virtually. We run summer schools, and finally, we run something we call learning journeys, which I will just briefly mention at the end, which are much longer lasting partnerships between an institution or a program where we facilitate some kind of thematic focused training with them over a period of time. So technically not short courses, but I will mention those at the end because they're quite important. So what we found, I think what we've been quite relieved about, if I was to be honest, is moving online with many of our courses does not seem to have undermined their quality. In fact, we've had some very, very positive feedback across a range of live online courses, because I think what we've tried to do is really, as much as we can, replicate that learning experience that IDS is well known for, with a lot of small group work, a lot of support from facilitators, really focusing not on us teaching the participants, but the participants often learning a lot from one another. So how do you learn on a professional short course? Well, first of all, who comes on these courses? I should mention this, I kind of alluded to it. Often the participants come from non-governmental organizations, government ministries, a variety of different multilateral and bilateral agencies and research institutions. So there are researchers coming on these courses, as well as other types of professional. And it's very diverse. And quite often people come to learn to gain individual skills, but quite often they also come, even though they sign up as individuals, what they're actually gaining are skills which they will take back into their organizations and apply at a program level or a project level or at an institutional level. And we really try to design these interactions to promote south-to-south learning, mutual learning. I think the participants often definitely learn as much from each other as they learn from anyone based at IDS. And that's deliberate, because we really believe in cross-regional learning. There's so much to learn between regions and between sectors as well. I've mentioned already, we have a mixture of face-to-face, online, a kind of hybrid, some of it's online, some of it's in person, and then this kind of live online learning experience. And I'll talk a moment about what our plans are for the future. In all of our professional learning, there is a lot of small group work. There'll be seminars, there'll be some pre-recorded lectures or actual lectures. But the whole thing is run very much as a kind of accompanied learning experience. So you're not just staring at a computer screen for hours on end, being fed information. You're interacting with your cohort, whether that's face to face before the pandemic kind of put an end to that, or whether it's virtually. So the whole thing is designed in a very user-centered design approach, building on our participatory tradition of participatory learning, and we use a lot of cutting-edge digital technology to kind of recreate that physical sharing of space, but virtually. So this almost seems like ancient history now, because this was back when people could actually come to IDS, this is from the Shaping Policy with Evidence course that Esther mentioned, when actually people could come together. What's been really interesting, though, as I mentioned before, is having had to adapt to delivering this virtually, what's happened is the size of these cohorts has tripled. So this particular course went from having, around 20 participants to having almost 40 participants once we took it online. And I think the reason for that is it was in some ways more accessible, because there wasn't the barrier of cost of having to physically come to the UK to do the course, but also participants on these courses are very busy, and to sort of go into your employer and say, I need to have 10 days or a week out of the office to go to the UK and go on a course can be a pretty hard sell. And the feedback we're getting is people are able to engage with these courses more easily when they can fit it within their working week. And so the cohorts have grown, but what hasn't changed is the small group work has remained exactly the same. What we do is we increase the size of the facilitation team to maintain the same very small group work and interaction between individuals. So what kind of courses are we running? So what do we help people learn? So this is some of the courses that we'll be running over the course of next year. I'm not going to go into huge detail. I'm happy to talk a bit more about them in the breakout groups. So we've got a Making Trade Policy Inclusive course. We've got a course on contribution analysis for impact evaluation. There's a strong demand for courses that deal with various aspects of evaluation. We've got a course on digital technology for international development. We've got the Shaping Policy with Evidence course, which I support. And we have a participatory action research course. Now, all these courses emerge directly out of our projects and programs and the work that we do. So they're not just a random collection of courses, they reflect the work of our research clusters and our knowledge teams and the work that they're doing with many partners around the world. And then we're kind of taking that knowledge and that experience and we're shaping a course around it. And each time we run this course, of course, we learn a lot from the participants. And so they're constantly evolving and changing, and I think remaining pretty cutting edge. There's also a number of different types of courses. These are the kind of more online or hybrid courses. We have a course on social protection, which is entirely online and, you know, is a more traditional online offer, which you can complete in your own time. Some of these are actually funded, so they're free at point of access. Pathways to Sustainability hybrid course, a research and tax and development hybrid course. That means they last over a much longer period of time, and you do some of it online and some of it in person. And a course on social protection, another course on social protection, which is planned to be a hybrid course. You can get information on all of the courses that we offer on the IDS website. And I think one of my colleagues maybe could pop in the chat a link to the landing page. But we're also constantly thinking about what should come next. So what other courses could we offer in the future? And this is largely based on feedback that we get from our partners. You know, it's demand driven. So we have in the pipeline the refreshment of one of our most well-known courses, Transforming Nutrition, for development professionals working on nutrition policy and looking to make better use of research to support nutrition policies. And that one is being refreshed and redesigned for to be delivered again. Humanitarian development and peace building, there's a plan to develop a course with that focus. Climate change and development, there is also currently plans to develop a short course around that theme. Accountability and governance, health systems, energy transitions, digital technology and humanitarian interventions, and finally, digital communications for development. So all of these ideas for courses are emerging from the IDS community and from our partners. You know, we're always interested to hear from our partners around the world where they think there are particular opportunities to fill a kind of gap in the market. You know, where is there some professional development support that's lacking that IDS working with others could try and fill? So who comes on the courses? This is a quick indication of who attended IDS professional development short courses in 21 this year, and you can see it's not that far off the map Melissa showed you earlier, and I think that's because quite often the people that come on IDS short courses are already coming from partners whom we already work with. So you see quite a similar geographic pattern where really, even where you can see sort of say the European countries highlighted, this is where people are based, where the individual participant is based rather than where their project is active. So for the most part, almost everyone who comes on these courses is working in a southern context. Although interestingly, we have begun to see a demand from some northern institutions, which is quite exciting because then you have that south to north learning opportunity, which is quite interesting. And one of the benefits of the courses that you sign up for as an individual is that you do then get exposed to many ideas from outside of your immediate institutional context, which I think is a really positive thing. And that's what participants have found. It's very different to when courses get delivered within a project, which is excellent because it's highly contextualized for that particular project. But then you kind of get that slight sort of bubble of you're talking to a lot of people who already share with you similar ideas of, say, for example, how change happens. So with these individual courses, you get a real mixture of sectors, professions, understandings, and geographies and political contexts, and that can be quite exciting and challenging for the participants. This is just a few examples. It's not a complete list of the types of organizations that people come from to engage on our professional development and learning courses. Very diverse, so NGOs, civil society, governments, research organizations, universities, big research programs. So very, very diverse, and it's really exciting to bring these people together around a particular area that they want to learn in, whether it's making better use of evidence to support policy making, or evaluating impact, or a particular area of programming. I mentioned at the beginning, there's this thing called learning journeys. So I just wanted to just briefly mention the other type of professional development that IDS does. We offer a lot of accompanied learning opportunities for organizations and programs. So what this means is that we, rather than just individuals coming on a course, either for a few days, or if it's live online, a couple of days in each week over 5 or 6 weeks, we actually co-design with a partner a learning journey that helps them to navigate a particular area. And we've done this with a lot of funders and donors, but also large research programs where we support them over a period of time to explore a particular set of issues that will help them to enhance their work. And this is an increasingly important area for IDS. Now, the reason I mention it in this presentation on short courses is because there's a lot of cross-fertilization between this accompanied learning and the short course program. Many of the ideas and the concepts that come out of this work at an institutional level feed into our short course programs. And often people come on our short courses, and as a result of attending as an individual, they come back to us and say, you know what, I actually think my organization or my program needs something more that includes more of us and could be more tailored to our needs, and therefore results in some form of learning journey or accompanied learning. We also tailor short courses. So often what people really want is something, understandably, something very much tailored to their particular context. And again, quite often someone will come on a short course at IDS. So the one I'm most familiar with is the Shaping Policy with Evidence course. And they'll say, well, this was fantastic, but I really would like now for you to co-design with us a course that's really for my organization or my program. And so we've ended up working with a number, this is just some examples, it's not a complete list, with a number of different organizations to help them, whether it's around impact evaluation, whether it's about policy engagement, whether it's about strengthening research systems, whatever the focus might be, it's very much tailored to their particular requirements. And it's a real partnership effort. So you can go on the website. There's many details of courses. We've got courses running in January and February and March next year, which are currently open for applications. But as I say, if you're more interested in something that's much more tailored, much more co-designed, you can always reach out to me and to others at IDS to discuss that. I hope that's been helpful. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, James, for another very informative presentation. That was extremely helpful. So please join me in saying a big thank you to James for that presentation. If you have any questions, you can pop them in the chat. I'm very mindful of the fact that we're coming up to time. So we are going to move on very quickly to just close out with the opportunity to have you connect with some IDS alum from the Pacific. Unfortunately, it is going to be quite brief, but there is an opportunity to engage directly with them in the breakout sessions. So I have with me in the room, actually, Professor Cavanamore, David Cavanamore, who is here, who is one of our one of the earliest alum, I guess, in the Pacific. David is joined by one of our more recent alum, Barbara Thomas, who is literally just back from the UK, and they're here in the room with me. And I wanted to take this opportunity to also welcome them to the event and to apologize that we are sort of running out of time, but it would be wonderful to hear from you both a little bit about what sort of made you choose IDS, and to summarize, what are some of the sort of issues that you're working on, that you've used your degree to apply to real world problems in the region and in your countries in particular. I know both of you, as you can see from their bios, are involved in very important work here in PNG, and they're both very well known in their own areas of work. So please join me in welcoming them. And maybe Barbara, we could start with you. If you could just tell us a little bit more about your experience at IDS, your recent experience.
Hi, everyone. Barbara. I did the MA in Law, Participation in Social Change. Why IDS? I think I was at this stage. I come from a civil society background, and I was in a period of transition into the research space, policy research space. And I was in this space where I was thinking about, you know how young people, after spending a long time in civil society and activist communities, they get really disillusioned about the idea of change and the rate of change. And like in Papua New Guinea, sometimes, with the challenges, governance challenges that we have in our country, I think I was in that place where I needed to take a break and to reflect on my own practice. And I decided to go to IDS because of, I was attracted to math because of the way it was structured and the emphasis that it placed on a critical inquiry into your own practice. So the emphasis was, on your own learning, your experience, making sense of that, and how you thought about, the processes of change. For me, that was really important to connect with other people such as myself, practitioners, mid-career practitioners who are working in the development space, in the civil society space, in the activist space, and have that chance to just unpack everything that I have been through, my experiences, and reconnect. And one thing that IDS was able to support me was facilitating that place where I could unpack those experiences and those practices and have that critical, reflective period. And I think one thing that I have taken out of my experience is that becoming that reflective practitioner, being more aware of, the process of change, or the political processes of change. I now work in the governance sector and thinking really about how power works and operates in these spaces and in complex settings as well too. I also, in my program, it focused a lot on participatory action research and focusing on your own practice as well too. And for me, I've been able to bring that approach to my own practice and think about, okay, in the places that I'm working, the challenge of connecting policy to practice is making sure that spaces are created, facilitated, where people can come in and engage and participate and have those conversations. But you, as a leader or someone who is facilitating that place, being mindful of the dynamics of a context and the different contexts of place. So, one of the big things in my experience from IDS that has helped me is just helping me to just have a framework on how I want to do my work and the values that I bring to my practice, and always thinking about the different spaces and the different people and the different people that I'm engaged in, and making sure that the processes are just, and the process is important. So it's not just about that outcome, but how you do what you do, and having that framework to think about how you do things in a just and equitable way. So that's been my my experience of how I've taken what I've learned to become a more reflective practitioner and to pay attention to how things are done. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Barb. That's I think the one thing that IDS produces is this sort of rich community of practitioners that are doing such fascinating and interesting work and important work all across the globe, essentially. Barbara is one of them, and I'm really so proud to see that so soon after her departure from IDS and the completion of her course, she's already working in such a senior role, in such an important position, contributing here to governance and accountability in the country. And you can join Barbara in the session after to hear a little bit more. But I wanted to leave the last word to Professor Cabana Moore, who has had such a rich career, who's worked on a number of issues since he's left IDS that are very sort of relevant to the discussions now about sustainable development and what's happening in the region. Prof, I don't know if you want to close us out with some of your own reflections in terms of what are some of the things that you are working on at the moment that you think speaks to this issue of sustainable development, but also the importance of learning and research.
Thank you, Esther. Melissa, you were one of my lecturers in the MPhil 16 back in 92, 94. So during those days, there were two streams in the MPhil program. There was the agricultural program and the industrialization program. So I took the industrialization program, and I was quite interested in industrial clustering and credit financing for small enterprises. So that took me through life into a PhD in strategic alliances for financial institutions. So I built on the experience at the IDS and novated that to a PhD in Sydney. What brought me to IDS initially was my yearning to understand the interplay between politics, economics, science, technology, and health. And those have become very pertinent issues. If you hear the discussions around COP26, actually captures what was discussed back then in the 1990s with Robin Mans and Ansing on terms of trade. But particularly Robin Mans talked about the issue of the tragedy of the commons in relation to the importance of the environment. And so these are very important issues that were discussed then, but they've actually played out over decades. And so the understanding of the interplay between politics, social, economics, health, and it was quite important for me. The other factor was that the IDS was since 1966. So actually the epicenter of development studies, which is epitomized in the British Library for Development Studies, which is possibly the oldest. But what I walked away with from the IDS was the works around Albert O. Westman's book and his discussion around the art of trespassing disciplines. And that's what the IDS is known for. More recently, I worked in the area of governance and understanding the linkages between governance and economic development. And what we did was we sought to understand the importance of governance in the Pacific. Back then, the Pacific was not the focus of the IDS, but those of us who went to the IDS benefited from a global perspective that IDS offered, having looked at the developmental challenges and the transitional issues that were faced in Africa, Latin America, and South Asia. And then we began to look at the developmental issues faced in the urban communities of the West, in the UK, in the US, and so on and so forth. So some of those lessons were actually fed into understanding of the challenges of development within urban communities. So, for example, in the field of industrial clustering, we drew from the experience of Baden-Württemberg, which is really a cluster of SMEs in terms of manufacturing industrial cluster. My supervisor was Hubert Smith, so he took me to Italy and to Baden-Württemberg, to Sialkot in Pakistan, and Rio Grande do Sul in Mexico and Brazil. So and clusters in Africa as well. So that really has really made out. It's really part of the wherewithal that one gains from having to go to study at the IDS. So in the governance project that we're working on, we were basically we took 14 open data sources on governance and extracted 76 indices of governance, and then used those indicators to assess Papua New Guinea's performance against a set of comparator countries. And what was established then, and I think this piece of work is going to be launched for Papua New Guinea in December. And what the study showed is that governance in Papua New Guinea is actually where it is in terms of its developmental experience. It's improved slightly, but so there is that interplay between the quantitative data saying that these are the indicators that governance is relatively stable, but when you undertake a participative approach through qualitative data, you begin to see a different picture, and so those are perceptions that are important, and they play out in the overall societal makeup of a country like Papua New Guinea. And so those are just my short experiences. I'm now in the space of managing state-owned enterprises, and so you go back to a debate between markets and states, and perfect and imperfect markets, and so on and so forth. So it's all been a very useful journey for me.
Fantastic. And it's been quite a rich and rewarding journey as well. I had the privilege of working with Professor Kavanamur when I first got here, and it's really very heartening to see this sort of the residual impacts that the training and education that we have all received from IDS and value so greatly is still being applied in our work today. So that essentially brings us to the end. I want to say a big thank you to Barb and to Prof for taking the time to share a little bit more of their experience. You'll have an opportunity to ask them questions directly in the breakout groups. But for now, we are going to draw this first half of the session to a close. Thank you very much for joining us. I want to especially say thank you to everyone who made presentations, and for those of you who took the time out to join us today, thank you. It's greatly appreciated. And next, what we would like to do is, if you have some more time and you'd like to learn a bit more about a particular area, I just want to walk you through the 3 breakout groups that we have now. Breakout room 1, which you'll have to select when this ends, is focusing on IDS teaching, and that's an opportunity for you to interact with Prof, with Barbara, and with Linda Waldman, the Director of Learning. Breakout room 2 is focused on the short courses, the professional learning opportunity, which James talked about, and you can speak a little bit more with James if there's something that you're particularly interested in, or if there's a project or something that you're working on and you want to have a more sort of tailored learning opportunity. And then the final breakout room will be hosted by Wezi Bangalube, who is joining us and who's online. And Wezi is going to be leading us in talking about partnerships. So if you're interested in collaborating or have any questions about how you can collaborate and partner with IDS, you should choose room 3, because that's the room for you. And Wezi will be there to take any questions and respond to you directly. So those are the 3 breakout rooms. If you find yourself in the lobby, there's someone there to help to redirect you. And if it is that this is the end of your interaction, thank you very much for joining us. We can also put up some of the slides in terms of useful resources and links, but as James emphasized, I think the best place for you to connect with us is through the website, because you can navigate that and find different individuals or programs or different more information on all that you've heard here today. So this was just meant to give you a taste of what's on offer and how IDS is tied to dealing with some of the larger and very complex issues that we're tackling here in the Pacific. And I think it's presented a really rich opportunity for us to discuss and understand those issues and look at synergies and linkages and opportunities for partnership moving forward. So thank you very much again, and I hope you'll join us in one of the breakout groups, and we look forward to the ongoing dialogue and opportunities for collaboration with you. Thank you, and thank you again to all our panelists. Bye for now. Take care. So we should join, we have to join breakout room 1. So I don't know why it's very good. Yes.
Are there any rooms that people would like to go to? There's still some people in the main room here.